Hey everyone, Lori Klein, one of the partners at Putnam, which is a life science strategy consulting firm, and I lead the medical and scientific affairs practice and really passionate about the topic, as are my panelists, so I'll let them introduce themselves.
Thanks, Lori. Hi everyone, my name is Loucif Ouyahia. I head up the digital healthcare, the global digital healthcare at Fierce Pharma. I am PharmD by training, and I have additional expertise in digital healthcare implementation. And now, of course, AI is everywhere.
Great. Hi, everyone. Nikheel Kolatkar. I'm Vice President for U.S. Medical at Genentech. And I lead a group that has a few different functions in it, but some of them are evidence generation, our MedInfo and communications team, our quality and compliance team. And then we have a small but mighty and growing team in digital, which is probably the most exciting area that I work in.
Awesome. So, oops, I'm going back the wrong way. So today what we're going to focus on is we'll talk about how we see precision medical affairs and really how it's allowing us to reframe the role of medical affairs in an AI era. We'll talk about some real world examples of how we've put that into practice. We'll also talk about how you can embed advanced analytics and AI into your medical affairs workflows. And then we'll talk about overcoming barriers to transformation. And if we have time left, we'd love to take some questions. So when we think about precision medical affairs, it's really about going from reactive to predictive. And if you think about where we started in medical affairs, it was really a one message for many of our key stakeholders. And then we evolved into segmentation, where we were tailoring by type, whether that was personas or archetypes, but it really wasn't about the needs of our HCPs. And with precision medical affairs, this really allows us to be targeted, timely, transformational in our engagement. And it's really because we're able to offer personalized, predictive, and data-informed engagement using a variety of AI data sets, real-world data, and dynamic feedback loops that we'll talk about today. I guess the first question I would ask is, Nick, when you look at it, how are data and AI allowing you to really offer precision medical affairs?
Yeah, I think it's a really exciting time right now for medical affairs, because the technology, I think, is allowing us to really, as you say here, move from maybe what was more reactive in the past to more predictive, and also to develop our strategies with much more precision that are data-driven. So I think in the past, we used to, as you showed here, either have sort of one message for many. We might create one sort of set of strategy and talking points and then deliver that throughout the United States, for example. Whereas we know that healthcare is very disparate and care gaps exist with different drivers and different geographies. I think many of us have used traditional things like healthcare provider segmentation, but it hasn't been very geographically granular. I think now with data sets, bringing together both real world data, demographic data, census data, EHR data, anonymized, I think you have the opportunity to really identify care gaps with much more precision. And then that allows you to create more tailored approaches to your strategy. So tailored content, tailored evidence generation, that then when your field medical folks are communicating with external physicians, they can have much more engaging and impactful conversations and ultimately make more patient impact. So I think it's an exciting new era. I think these data have existed for many years. I think the technology now with AI especially is allowing us to bring all those data layers together and to really uncover new insights that we weren't able to previously.
What about you, Loucif? What are you saying?
Yeah, I fully agree with what Nick mentioned. I think the example, I will share some concrete examples I have implemented myself or my team and some colleagues from other pharma. The first one is about the RAG, the retrieval augmented generation, and the impact of RAG for medical affairs and even beyond. This power to search and to request information from a huge asset of data. I think it's extremely important, time saving, cost saving, and feeding the strategy and finding even I had a recently an example in neurosciences where we look for niche treatment and new indications and extensions. The second one is literature review using AI. I think that's one of the most concrete application of AI for medical affairs and even beyond medical affairs, where we can check, for example, for risk management and signal detections for different drugs. That's the two examples I have. And the last one is more practical in terms of processes, is agentic AI, adding agents to the existing database, because as you know, like modeling and changing the practices and processes very often taking some time. And having this ability to add agents to existing tools is extremely important, just to simplify like day-to-day work and the classical activities.
That's awesome. And I think, one of the things that we talked about is that really advanced data analytics and AI really can support a feedback loop to power precision medical affairs strategy. So it really starts with pulling that data together that you want to inform your strategy. So it could be, all your medical insight data, your claims data, whatever data sets you have really can help you with AI's support, refine your strategic plan. This really helps us come up with more bespoke activities, whether it's personalized outreach and messages. And then that really can impact our outcomes. So we're able to more effectively change beliefs, change behavior, close care gaps. And then all of those outcomes really should be feeding back to what do we need to know from our data analysis. So, as we think about, this kind of feedback loop, Loucif, are there some examples where you can show how this feedback loop in your organization has had impact?
Sure. I think I will start with just short notes about the strategy using advanced analytics for the strategy. I think from my experience, what I saw, we need to think about broader than medical affairs to fit the strategy. The analytics, just with data we have in medical affairs, is not enough. And we need to expand to commercial, to expand to clinical development and beyond. The first example I have, Lori, is about the MSLs. I had the chance to implement tools for MSLs using AI to help MSLs at different stages. We have started with just a processes focus, is to help MSLs in their collections of the insights. And we thought about extending this application of AI to the insights triage and the insight translation into actions. I think we had really, really significant results. Of course, we need to harmonize the practices. There is an international dimension of the implementation. The second example I have is about the congresses management using AI. There is a lot of manual work in congresses management. We have the pre-congresses work, all the triage, poster selections. We have the peri-congresses work, where we need to mix between the discussions at boards, attending sessions for the teams attending congresses, and finally the reports. Extremely stressful 1 month for the teams, for medical teams, to come with a significant report to share with the teams. AI was able to shorten the time and even strengthen the efficiency of the first step during the triage. We have a live analysis of the Congress. We can make live decisions, not waiting 2-3 months after the Congress to make a decision. And finally, just within few days, we have reports, and we can share the reports and do the insights using AI.
Great examples, and the Congress one is interesting because it also lets you start to predict what you need to do for the next Congress and look back, plan, in advance. So very great. What about you, Nick? What are you seeing?
Yeah, I think how you've set this up is very critical in terms of it being a loop, because I think, yes, you can start with the data and the integrated data. I mean, I like to think of it almost as if you think about a political campaign and you think about the election heat map and how you can then drill down, you see it on television, you can drill down into the specific geography or zip code or, very granular. And then you tailor your, in that case, they would tailor their messages and their strategies and everything based on that precision, right? I think we have the opportunity in medical and it's much higher stakes, right? This isn't a political campaign. This is like about helping patients and helping improve care. So I think we have the opportunity to really use this integrated data analysis to create this heat map of care gaps, and with precision. But then I think obviously you can then create tailored strategies, content, deliver those. But then I think bringing the insights back into your data set, because we have, I think you need to combine the human and the machine intelligence, right? So we have the machine intelligence coming from the data, but we have the human intelligence coming from, say, our field medical colleagues who are out speaking with folks on the ground. So I think the on-the-ground intelligence, the validation you're getting of the data, I think you need to make sure you're bringing that back through either your CRM or some other mechanism into your data lake. And then that can help refine your strategy even further. So I think bringing together the human-machine kind of partnership is even more powerful than either alone.
It's great. It's great. Let's hear from you. If you can take out scan in the QR code, we'd love to know, how is AI being applied within your existing data analytics workflows? And maybe while we're waiting, Nick, you want to talk about what you're seeing in your institution? Yeah,
so I think we're really, as the prior speaker mentioned, I think there's so many applications of AI throughout the various workflows within medical affairs. I mean, whether it's content generation or document creation or using agents to help respond to queries, or I think we're trying to really, actually just start with some foundational, we're even before we start to apply AI at scale, we're trying to just do some foundational upskilling and knowledge of our people, to help make sure people understand how to use these tools before we just start, creating all this capability and trying to deploy it. So we've been spending a lot of time just on upskilling and foundational knowledge around AI.
What about you, Loucif?
We have started with the data organization preparation. I think I confess we underestimated the work on the data, especially if you think your initiatives, like for example, what I'm doing with the Center of Excellence for AI is for the entire R&D. It's complex with just the data we have in medical. When you extend it to the entire R&D with different data organizations, securities, etc., is much more complex. I think spending sometimes, certainly several months, preparing the data for the AI application, because frankly, AI application on the existing clean data, for at least, I'm not like a tech person, but for AI engineers is not the most important challenge, but preparing the data certainly is the most important, and train people and their colleagues about the data organization.
Awesome. And maybe we can hear more from you in the Q&A. We can just go to the next question we had. The next one was just, what do you think is the biggest opportunity for advanced analytics and AI in medical affairs at your company? Loucif, what would you say?
Medical impact measuring. I think there is a lot. Everything is interesting, frankly, in the list. But measuring the medical impacts, because I came from medical before digital healthcare. And I know the struggle of medical to find the right place as a business player. And I think showing the value of medical finally with data, especially I have just one example about social media listening to show the impact of scientific communication is extremely important. Finally, we have with AI the opportunity to show the value of the medical affairs activities.
What about you, Nick?
Yeah, I think it's really being able to uncover new insights that we hadn't able to before. I think clearly there's opportunities around efficiency, but I think really it can help us uncover new insights. I think that's probably the biggest opportunity. I think also just being able to advance this paradigm of a precision approach, which we weren't able to do. People are very familiar with obviously precision medicine and precision oncology, and which is really around developing targeted therapeutics and diagnostics. But now I think we have the chance to take this precision approach to delivery of our medical affairs activities and strategy. And that's, I think, a huge opportunity, not only for us as companies, but I think we can have much more engaging in impactful conversations with our healthcare professionals who have limited time to meet with us. So if they're able to meet with us about, and we're basing that conversation on data-driven things that are relevant to their ecosystem, I think that's much more compelling.
Absolutely. So what about if we think about some real-world examples of how you can put precision medical affairs in place? One is certainly care gap localization that Nick has alluded to, and this is really using predictive analytics to think about that heat map and look at geography and specialty. We can also use it for evidence generation optimization, and so we see different groups that are pulling together real-world data, whether it's claims, EMR, labs, looking at all of it holistically, leveraging AI so that we can really improve our patient finding, better determine, care gaps, et cetera. And then certainly another great use case is clinical trial diversity. To Tanya's point earlier, how do you get the right patients in your trials? And so leveraging AI can really help in that capacity. So I know, Nick, you've talked about localized care gaps. Can you give an example from your perspective?
Yeah, so some of this we're still in early stages, but one thing we're doing, we have a sort of active project ongoing right now, is in ophthalmology. So there's ophthalmology, retinal vascular disease, the area we've been in as a company for quite a long time, nearly 20 years, with ranibizumab, which was the first therapy for intravitreal injection for AMD and diabetic macular edema. And now we have next generation therapies. And the prescriber base is relatively limited. Retinal surgeons might be like 2,000 across the US. So it's an area we've been in for a long time. We know the prescriber base very well. But yet there's still so much we don't know, and so many new insights to be gleaned. So we've said, let's look at the data, even if we just look at a few different relatively simple claims data, census data, demographic data, and some anonymized EMR data. And what we're finding there is that there are definitely care gap hotspots related to persistence of therapy that we are not really targeting with our strategies or field force. So if we look at patients who were diagnosed, saw an ophthalmologist, got 1 or 2 treatments with an intravitreal injection, but then became lost to follow-up. Sort of why is that? What were the drivers for that? It wasn't that they weren't diagnosed. It wasn't that they couldn't get to an ophthalmologist. It wasn't that they didn't have access. But there are elements of education and medical education and patient education and things that can be helpful. So, and then we can match that up with where are our field medical folks engaging, right? So like we can look at the call rates or calls of where our medical affairs MSLs are which physicians are they seeing, and how does that match up with the care gaps? And what we're realizing is that there are definitely areas of care gap hotspots that we're not even going to, and where we could have maybe more impact than the places we are going. So we're now in the process of, so we've created, like I said, that election sort of heat map, if you will. And we're now using that in a few targeted geographies to create tailored content and some tailored evidence generation based on real world data from those geographies. And then we're in the midst of, with our field team, deploying that content and seeing what the kind of reaction is. So this is very much a real-time example, and we don't have the outcomes yet, but it's really fundamentally changing our approach.
Super exciting. What about when you think about across different countries, what are some considerations for precision medical affairs?
Yeah, sure. I come from the AMA region, and I'm based in Europe. In the US, we have a certain maturity in terms of diversity in clinical trials, at least the discussions around the diversity. In Europe, it's much more complex, to discuss with 17, 18th country and to discuss the diversity. And finally, AI was able to provide more arguments about the patient's identifications and selection and inclusion for clinical trials, because you can say like 90% of the clinical trials in Europe are cross countries, and thanks to AI, we were able to find finally sets of the right patients and including the diversity. And the second example I have is the niche, the patient's needs, treatment niche, and identification. I did work recently within AI, using AI for Scandinavian registries. All certainly heard about Scandinavian registries in neurosciences. A huge amount of data, but underused because of the complexity of the data and searching the data. I think AI helped us, especially in epilepsy, for example, the area I am working on it, to find the niche patients and niche treatment for indication extension.
That's awesome. So what about embedding advanced analytics and AI into your medical affairs workflows? So, as we talked about it, there are definitely some considerations in order to make it effective. So one is that we really want to be thinking about how are we going to create an end-to-end digital medical affairs model. So that comes with working across stakeholders, whether it's medical affairs, clinical, could be commercial. And then how do you create a closed loop system that allows you to have that real-time feedback? Also thinking about what's going to be a good use case for embedding your analytics and AI into your workflows. So places that people are naturally going, content personalization, field optimization, and certainly insight management seem like good first places to take a peek. And then we need to think, and we had a long discussion about this morning at breakfast, just like organizational enablers. This might be the hardest box to tap into, but it's really about how do you upskill your team? How do you consider change management and the importance of how that needs to create the culture to allow it? And then do you have the right infrastructure in place? So I think, Loucif, I would love to know, what are some of the things that you would suggest for people as they're thinking about embedding this advanced analytics and architects into their architecture and workflows?
It's a good question, good discussion. I think the first one I have is centralization of AI implementation. We have tried different models for AI implementations in medical, within the R&D, with the chief medical office. I think the best model for now, I don't know for the coming future, things are evolving fast, is centralization. We have created, with my team, a center of excellence for AI. And the goal is to harmonize our efforts, to harmonize the strategy and give more clarity for the next steps. But this doesn't prevent you to have in parallel equipment of your teams, because in medical, you can centralize the implementation of AI for more efficient implementation, but you need to equip your medical teams, for example, the MSLs, the medical advisors with AI. I think we can have this kind of in parallel strategy implementation. And the last one is about, you mentioned, Lori, change management and practices change. I think that's extremely important. For example, we have implemented insights management and the insights platform within my company. And we ask all medical teams working on these yearly strategic meetings to spend at least two weeks looking on all of the insights before making any critical decisions. And that's a practice we have requested for all the medical teams working on strategy.
Nick, what about some of the challenges you see?
Yeah, sure. I think this box around organizational enablers is really, really critical, because I think traditionally we haven't necessarily hired people in medical affairs for their digital knowledge or their kind of AI fluency, obviously, or we've hired them for their medical expertise, their therapeutic area knowledge. So I think there's a level of upskilling, that's needed, and also additional things we're looking at when we try to recruit new talent to the organization. But I think the upskilling, digital fluency, I think that's critical, and also just the shift in mindset. I mean, even myself, when I'm interacting with a large language model, I mean, I still think I have to continue to remind myself I'm not interacting with the machine as though I'm searching for something. I mean, I need to interact with the machine as though it's my colleague, right? And I can ask it to do tasks, not just search for information. So I think there's also just a mindset shift needed in terms of like how we interact with AI. We have a company-wide, essentially it's a 6-part kind of training program that essentially all employees have to complete around AI, which is just to create a baseline level of digital fluency. But then I think probably a more important thing is just starting to practice using it even in your day-to-day work. So for example, as an enterprise, we use the Google suite of tools, so like Google Documents and Sheets. But as part of that now, they're embedding Gemini. So you can use Gemini to take notes from your meeting. You can use Google Deep Research to create a white paper on something. You can, so we're encouraging people to we call it everyday AI, but basically just start experimenting with things you do on a day-to-day basis, and how can AI help you do those, more efficiently and quicker. And then I think I think it's one of those things you have to start using it to get comfortable with it.
Agreed. So maybe just to bring it home, one of the things that we're seeing, we did a recent survey with our Medical Affairs Leadership Council, which is heads of medical affairs across the industry, and asked, what's the AI literacy of your medical affairs team? And you can see, unfortunately, it's low to adequate is what's coming up. And certainly we want to see how we can push this to the right. And some of the suggestions and things that these leaders were asking for is, how do we get access to more different types of AI tools? And how do we get hands-on training and playbooks in place? So we'd just love to know, what are some effective tools and ideas that you've leveraged? Nick, how about you? Talked about the AI training. Anything else you would recommend?
Yeah, the tools. I mean, the amazing thing I think is that these tools are even the generic tools. Just GPT or Gemini or any of the large language models, they're so generalizable that you no longer necessarily need bespoke tools for what you're trying to do. You can, like I said, we routinely are using AI to transcribe our meeting notes, right? To create research documents, to create white papers. I think there's so many ways where you can start experimenting with just generic off-the-shelf things. There's ways you can start to create even websites. So like Google Canvas will let you take a document and it will create like a website. And so that got us thinking, how can we take our strategic medical plans and instead of them sitting in kind of slide decks, create essentially like a site for them so that you have a more interactive thing that can be updated in real time. So I think it's important to just start experimenting because it opens your eyes to then what may be possible, like new ideas you hadn't thought of.
Love it. What about you?
I think I would speak about the barriers we have in terms of scaling teams. I think the first one we have is about training, the complexity of technology itself and how to simplify the technology. I see Vera here, one of my business partners and a specialist in AI trainings. I think finding freeing time of the people to find more time for training is extremely important, and innovation in terms of training, because sending just like the classical slides, the classical PDFs for people to read and to learn about AI is not the best solution. Especially you speak about technology, but you keep like the old and not innovative ways of training. And the last one I have, really important one, is the fear of people to get replaced by AI. Each time I do a presentation about AI implementation, I hear about people, especially in medical affairs, about their fear. When you are like a medical reviewer, and your work is to review documents, and you have AI doing the same thing with just a few minutes. Of course, I fully understand, but I think for the response to this question, first, the health authorities, for now, they request the human inputs and the human review. They don't accept the 100% AI review. I think that's the first argument. The second one, we still need the human to do the job, and we ask them to do much more with the same resources. AI is here to help. And finally, pushing back is certainly not the best strategy. Adopting AI and control of the use of AI and its implementation certainly is the best strategy.
Awesome. We maybe have time for one question, if there are any.
That was a great talk. Thank you, guys. Very, very insightful. My name is William Solomon. I'm with the ACMA, and we work with hundreds of pharmaceutical companies. We focus on learning and development and training. And one of the things that we've been focused on actually in the last 2 years is digital fluency, what Nick mentioned. I absolutely agree with you. All the data shows that, and I think this slide, reinforces that, is unfortunately, like you said, when we hire medical affairs professionals, we're not hiring them for digital fluency. One of the things that I've seen as well in my discussions with regulatory bodies, like I've met many times with the FDA, for example, is they are concerned about the use of AI. They encourage it, but they're worried about it because, as you know, a lot of the large language models do have biases in them. And how do you account for that and audit for those models? So one of the things that we've focused on from a training perspective is really certifying medical affairs and MSL professionals so that there is a level set uniformity. And I just wanted to get your thoughts on that.
No, totally agree. I think it's important, especially as the AI models are continuing to evolve and develop. I mean, they're certainly not perfect, but I always ask people to think: are your humans perfect either? Right? Because our humans we all make mistakes as well, right? And we all have to make sure we're checking our work. So I think it's important to help people understand. If you ask Google Deep Research to generate a white paper, it is not just ready to go off the shelf and you just hand it to. You need to, just as if you had an intern create a white paper, you would look it over and edit it, and you need to do the same thing. So I think there's this element of, whether it's a formal certification or this element of like the human machine combination is needed. It's not just taking something the machine generates and then just shipping it. So I think helping people to understand your work product is stronger if you bring the two together.
Yeah, and I think to your point earlier, it's treating it as a colleague, which you obviously would iterate with, as opposed to just, oh, here's the answer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And definitely, like you said, Loucif, the AI is not there to replace the person. It's like, I'm giving you 10 direct reports for free, right? Who are world experts in many different things, right? So it allows you as a person to be able to do much more than you otherwise could.
And just to add, last point, the certification is really good idea. I think the huge work we have to do is with the regulators and the health authorities in their acceptance of the AI intervention. Yeah. I think we can say slightly or even more successful with the pharma and the healthcare industries, but less with the regulators and the healthcare.
The only last thing I'll add, I agree with you, is because especially what's happened recently in the last year, some of the payers who are using algorithms to deny patients access to medications in their AI algorithms, there's a heightened focus, I could tell you, from my discussions at least on the government side. So I think it's something we should think about in the medical affairs space to really protect the integrity and have some guardrails for what we're doing with AI. But thank you.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.